The title of my speech is Unlearning Harm, Why Cultural Competency Matters. This speech is to show how, as a society, we normalize so many harmful things that we shouldn't. A study in New York City shows that 88% of police stops in 2018 involved Black and Latinx people, while only 10% involved white people. Culture is defined as the way of life shared by a group of people. It manifests itself in many ways, such as customary beliefs, norms, values, and symbols or artifacts. The definition of intercultural competency is the ability and skill to comprehend, sympathize, empathize, appreciate, and with people from different cultural backgrounds, and thereby communicate in culturally effective, sensitive, and appropriate manners. This allows for engagement with diversity during public speaking and identifying and resolving culturally inappropriate behaviors. This article explains the fallout of Sierra Ortega's removal from the show Love Island after past videos resurfaced. In these videos, she repeatedly uses a derogatory anti-Asian slur to describe her looks. Many online anti-Asian users minimize the severity of the slur, exposing a lack of understanding of racist and harmful origins. This article urges us to use this situation as an opportunity to have deeper conversations about racial respect, accountability, and the need for greater cultural awareness. Using racial slurs is interculturally incompetent and manifests prejudice because it disrespects cultural and racial identities, shows a lack of awareness of history and social context, and ignores the feelings and perspective of others. This pertains to this class by showing how we should gain knowledge about cultures besides our own. This also shows how these actions should not be normalized. The history of anti-Asian racism shows how they have been looked at as unclean in a society that promoted whites-only immigration policies. In today's society, Asians still face prejudice because of the coronavirus from their homeland such as the hate crimes involving Korean women. To be culturally competent, we have to encourage students in the classroom not to persecute others based on race or color, and take time to learn the history of others. A study in New York City in 2019, Asian Americans have a poverty rate of 10% lower than the 3 percentage points in the overall U.S. poverty rate. From the early 1800s, Asians have been mistreated. In a nation that promoted a whites-only immigration policies, Asians stood out and were called yellow peril. They were seen as unclean. Just because of the color of their skin, they were excluded from the nation. In the late 19th century, white nativists spread exophobic propaganda about Chinese uncleanliness in San Francisco. This fueled the passage of the infamous Chinese Exclusion Acts, the first law in the United States that barred immigration solely based on race. In this image, it shows the Chinese people being deported back to China. This is relevant because it shows how white people are looking down at them as inferior and sending them back to their original land. In the present day, Asians face more prejudice than ever. After COVID-19, many people chose to blame Asians, especially the Chinese, for the virus. This was produced by stereotypes, even though anyone could be intersectional. Hate crimes continue, such as the shooting of 3 Korean women in their store. Last week, a gunman opened fire in a Korean-owned hair salon in the Koreatown section of Dallas, Texas, and shot 3 Korean women who suffered non-life-threatening injuries. The police are now investigating this as a hate crime because it may be linked to 2 other shootings of Asian-owned businesses in the area. This shows how not even knowing these people or these lives, people try to harm them because of their culture. This image pertains to the point because it shows how prejudice against Asian Americans is increasing over the years. Americans question their loyalty to the U.S. due to the virus outbreak. To make sure we are being culturally competent, we must promote the education of every culture's history, and we should not make any judgments based on color or race. Instead of pointing out how they are different, seek out similarities. Use empathy in your daily conversations because you never know the whole story unless you're the person living it. It is better to be too nice than to be too mean. In this study, multiracial students, i.e. those students who were identified as belonging to more than one racial or ethnic group, reported the highest rates of bullying involvement, 30.6%, followed by those students who did not know their races, ethnicities, 26.9%, African Americans, 23.2%, white, 20.6%, and Asian American students, 18.5%. Hispanic students, 17.9%, reported the lowest rate of involvement in bullying. Asian American students were more likely to be racially or ethnically bullied because of comments about their race or color or their names than their peers of other races or ethnicities in U.S. schools. This shows the strategies to use when including cultural competency in schools. In conclusion, using racial slurs is unnecessary and disrespects individual cultures. The use of these show a lack of knowledge and respect of their histories and damages growth of the unity of a society. This article is a very important representation of the situation of racial slurs because it shows how people disregard and normalize these actions. This is an example of intercultural communication because it shows the disrespect and prejudice of Asians. The Chinese Exclusion Act started and the outbreak of the coronavirus sparked the violence towards them again. The lack of knowledge of how harmful these terms are, we can provide more easy access to the history of Asians, also by using small organizations to promote the spread of it. So how can you help this cause today?